All right, so as I like to say, I don't know that I'm woo-woo, but I am a little woo. So I'd like to start off with a little bit of some stuff related to energy. I'm, a white belt meditator at best. So this is a bit of the blind leading the blind, I guess, to this next little thing. But what I'd like you guys to do is I'd like to get in the energy of abundance real quick. Is that something you guys are down to do together? Yes. You guys believe in the unseen? Things that start in the mind that then become reality? If the answer's not a hell yes, then you got no time or no reason to be an entrepreneur, because that is the name of the freaking game here, all right? Okay, so we're going to close our eyes, and I just want to get into the energy of abundance, guys. I want you to think of trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars coursing through the economy. How many of you guys know that that's what's happening every single day? How many of you guys believe that capital is flowing from those that have earned it to those that they want to invest it in to see solutions of the future be created? How many of you believe that, know that to be true? How many of you believe that you're building something that has the potential to change lives, whether it's your employees' lives, whether it's the customers' lives, whether it's the investors' lives, and to change your life? How many of you believe that? Get into that energy. You must believe this. This isn't a, I'll believe it, I'll see it when I believe it. That's really what it is. It's not a, hey, Kurt, when I see it, I'll believe it. It actually starts the reverse. It comes from your way of being. It comes from your way of being. All right, little story. You can open up your eyes. I had a massive issue with my iPhone yesterday. Crazy how a little piece of technology can put you in a tailspin when you're producing a bunch of events. So I walked in, I'm like, I am buying an iPhone. It's the first thing I said to him. I said, no matter what happens, I must buy an iPhone, and it needs to happen right now. And I was ready to buy a white iPhone. I'm out in the desert all the time, mountain biking. It gets hot, I'm thinking, or whatever. And she goes, but have you considered the green? And my other phone is green. And I thought, but I said, you know what? Green's the color of growth. Green's the color of money. And so the reason I bring this up, guys, is many of us, including myself sometimes, have deluded ourselves into thinking that us having capital, us having money means somebody else has to go without. It's not true. How many of you guys know that there's an unlimited amount of abundance out there when it comes to human ingenuity? Is there a limit to human ingenuity? No, absolutely not, right? So what's cool about what you're going to experience today is by very proximity to those that have had exits, you're more likely to have an exit out of your company. By proximity to capital and multi-hundred millionaires and billionaires, which is not required at all for happiness. This isn't a conversation about happiness. This is a conversation about resources and access to capital. You are more likely to become a billionaire, right? So I made a snap decision, even though this looks really white. This is the brand new iPhone. I made a snap decision to be intentional about increasing my dating relationship with money, because I always want to be working on it. I always want to be increasing the abundance that I create or co-create with other people so that I can welcome more of it, so that I can then redirect it and be a good steward, right? And the challenge that many of you guys get to partake in is this fundraising journey, this founder journey, as Nathaniel also talks about, right? And the most important ingredient in your venture is you and your energy and the way you announce yourself and how you project yourself and the strength of the frame that you have. We're going to talk more about this with Melvin later. Okay, cool. One of the things that we love to do here at Who's Got My Money is we love to bring our friends in that are having success and are trying different things and are evolving and they're shifting and they're realizing that they can create a different narrative that sometimes gets an entirely different result. So really quick, I'm going to have my buddy Josh Stacy come up here, and he's going to share a very quick update. So we like to switch up the content. We can go into the deep mechanics of fundraising. We're not going to do a lot of that today. Really quickly, there's 4 major capital categories, guys. There's public and gov funds. That's all. Anything that started as taxpayer money that can come back to you into your venture through the federal government, through the regional, part of a regional part of the United States, through your state, through your county, through your city. That's all public and gov funds. That's where grants come from. They sound really sexy. There is no perfect capital type. It's all about knowing when to play which capital card, okay? So again, there is no perfect capital type. It's all about understanding capital stack and capital sequence. Capital stack is what are the various types of capital I will put into my venture at any given time, okay? And you don't usually understand that you're not going to just have one investor that's going to save your company. It's going to be a bunch of different capital. And when I say different, I don't mean all angel investors, all VCs. I'm talking about different types of capital. The second capital category is debt. This is something I helped to co-pioneer out of Utah, building startup loans for startups. Banks say they give startup loans, they absolutely do not. So what I did, and what my crew did, is we figured out a way to use their underwriting against them and get startups funded, which I thought was a little bit of poetic justice. And we've done it thousands and thousands of times. It's not great for really large scale stuff, but it's great for that start money, that first 150 grand that you need, right? And there's a bunch of different categories inside of debt. There's collateral-based lending, there's contract-based lending, there's cash flow-based lending, and there's credit-based lending. And I had to become an expert in those, and I would stack those into different companies to help them to be successful. Then I moved on and became a VC. I thought this would be the fix. No, VC has its own challenges. That's the equity capital category. So you're giving away equity in your business in exchange for capital. And then we've got raised revenue. I call it raised revenue. I also called this particular capital type sponsored capital. Now, I made the term up so I can be the expert on it. And what it is what happens when a very large funding source or a single check writer decides to put money into your company for the outcome you can produce, not for the interest or the equity in your business. This isn't about, hey, I want to give you a loan. This isn't about, hey, I want to take a piece of your company. These funding sources are so large, they don't care about the interest or the equity in your business. So when you do the discovery process, and we're going to model this with Yves here in a minute, you talk to these single check writers and you find out what they care about. You always start with that. And then you find an outcome that they want, that you're aligned to, that they'll write a check for. Mr. Joshua Stacy with Big TV, and you're working to build through software dev and help co-launch 1,000 startups, right? So tell us real quick about what you've kind of been experiencing. I know you're learning on your own, so I'm not taking credit for it. But let's talk about this sponsored capital thing. How's this been working for you real quick?
Well, so a bit of context, I have tattoos of 2 projects I built. One of them because it made a lot of money, one of it because it got me a lot of international attention. I've never had an investor. I got over $3 million in revenue on my first company just directly from customers, but that was specifically on the offer. So one of the things that's been really interesting, so Big TB is a software company. We are working on Project 1000. We have built or partnered on almost 100 projects so far. We have a 10-year goal to do 1,000. And in the process, something really neat happened in the last probably 6 weeks. Because we've been showing off so much competence of what we're doing and showing off our portfolio.
Wait, you have to be competent?
It helps. Lord, it helps. At least something. It doesn't have to be everything. So, yeah, we've been showing off what we've been doing, and we've had 3 businesses write us pretty big checks to do pretty interesting stuff, and 2 of them have come back already saying they want to give us more money. And we found this interesting niche with small and mid-sized businesses because we've been working so hard on startups, right? You're going into a new industry, you're going to try to be the industry leader. We actually use a different approach. We try to at least be the bottom, because then we can at least be in the market. That's where a lot of the best innovation comes. But we're in the market, and at this point, we're in probably 60 different markets. And in the process, small and mid-sized businesses, they actually have very low software requirements. It's very simple work for us. And because we show them the complex logistical things that we handle, they say, hey, can you do this? And then it's not investor money, it's not debt, it's just cash to the company. It lets us flow through, like do everything else. And they're not expecting anything else. They want the product to work. So,
Now don't lose what he just said. Okay, there's a difference between you needing to get clients and customers. Yes, the answer is always yes. Yes, you need that. So an example I like to give, there's a founder we love working with out in New York City. She was working with L'Oreal and she was working with Reebok on a number of things. And she was about to get them signed $30,000 to $50,000 payday. Okay, that's exciting, that's great. And I said, you're talking to the wrong department. She goes, what do you mean? I said, you need to go talk to the back end of L'Oreal and find out who's writing the checks for startups, because they fund startups all the time. And that check is not $30,000, it could be $300,000, it could be $3 million. And in many cases, there could be zero equity involved. L'Oreal is a multi-billion dollar company. For them, a couple $1 million, they lost that in the couch. They don't care about the equity, they care about the outcome you can produce. And I know this is hard for people to wrap their heads around. So they say, Kurt, why would somebody do this? I say, I don't know. Show me the corporation. Show me the family office. Show me the check writer, right? My good buddy Tyler here from the city, he had a very important friend that all of us had the opportunity to love the benefits of what Tony produced when he had Zappos downtown. He did not write checks for a return. In fact, almost never did he do that, right? So we have a real living, breathing example, actually not living, but it still remains in what impact he's made downtown Las Vegas, $400+ million. Very little of it with any thought of what he personally wanted other than a dream of seeing amazing people colliding together, right? So real quick on that. So you kind of skipped right over and was like, hey, they're giving it. Basically what he's saying is they gave him extra money that helped him to subsidize helping some of these little guys. And this money wasn't all directly tied to what outcome you were producing for them as a client.
Well, to be clear, they like the work that we do. So the company and the brand is likable enough. They say that's a business we'd like to support. But also when we're doing the tier of work we're doing, it's really good margin. So if there's something you're good at, now we can't scale this, it's services work. So it's not going to be, a 30x multiple on this type of work, but it's good cash now and it doesn't have strings attached. So if you've got a startup or a business you're looking at, I think, for me, the formula that's always worked the best is get something making a couple of bucks to begin with. It doesn't have to be where you're going to end up. There's a lot of emphasis put on making things scalable. Almost all of the time, whatever you're doing to begin with is not scalable. It's not going to work like that.
Do things that don't scale in the beginning.
Yeah, make some money and learn some mistakes, and along the way, you're going to be more
investable.
investable.
Say, why do you build community, Kurt? I'm like, what's the ROI? I say, you're missing it. What's the ROR? What's the return on relationship? Community doesn't scale until it scales, and then it really goes. 18 months of hard effort or whatever, and then it starts to really take off. All right, Josh, we'll chat more. All right. We got another local hero founder. That's Josh. So, Mr. Yves Perez, come join us. So this is a one to watch, guys. When we're doing venture ecosystem building, I like to identify founders that I believe are backable. If you don't know the difference between funding and backing, funding is, hey, here's some money. But when you get groups that are willing to back you, you being backed means we're not going to allow you to fail. Now, we know that there's still a possibility as you've been growing. There's always been this moment where things could fail.
Yeah.
But, a venture ecosystem creates that network, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? Network effect. It's not network effect, is it? Yeah, it's network effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, network effect, where the more participants, the more talent, the more whatever, it starts to build on top of itself. And so one of the things that we're hoping to do behind the scenes, all of the partners that you guys get a chance to meet, is we're trying to build something where 5%, maybe 8% of a show pony, really, really, really talented founder that gets to really make it and have an exit in this market, we can say a small portion of their success is attributable to what we helped to support them with, right? Yves is doing the work every single day, but I want to see us really get behind 15 to 20 of the best founders to show that this ecosystem is something that people are underestimating. I think people underestimate Las Vegas all the time. So you're going to tell us really quick what you do, and then we're going to talk about how you already got funded from 15th largest construction company in the country. Yeah. They were one of your original funders.
Yeah.
And then you and I had a conversation. We're going to get into that right after you explain what WorkBnB does.
All right. So I am CEO of WorkBnB, and I believe traveling workers matter. In 2019, my mom asked me to move to Reno to help grow her vacation rental business. But what I quickly discovered was that the majority of her bookings were workforce related. So then I changed the vernacular from vacation rentals to workforce rentals, and within a year, her venture became the largest rental operation in Reno with 45 rentals. We grew her revenue by like 800%. But that's when I had discovered that these large industrial general contractors that are building projects all over the country, they need to find housing in like large scale type scenarios, and it's for longer periods of time. So I was like, okay, well, let's build a product, but I told him, I said, I'm not going to do it unless you're the first customer to sign. And that changed my life. That changed everything. We started building, and I'm a non-technical founder. I didn't know how to build shit. So I knew I was jumping into some shit that I wasn't like 100% ready for. But then I went to the ecosystem to say, hey, like, I don't know how to raise money. I don't know how to do this. what are some ideas that will help me other than just what everybody else is doing? And, you know, Kurt really just put this seed in my brain. Hey, you know, you can do what everybody else is doing where you have like one product, one channel, one avatar, and you just grind it out. Or you could really go to that one avatar and make them like open up everything, all the problems, and then maybe they'll actually write a check to you that will, you know, get to an outcome that they really, really need.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, bet, like we'll do that.
So let's model this real quick. So he's got this very large builder. They write an angel check into the company.
Right.
They're happy. Yves comes to me and I say, look, I can explain all these different capital types. This is my obsession. We're building a funding platform to automate this fundraising process. How is it that blockchain and AI are moving at light speed and fundraising takes 9 to 12 months? Makes no sense. So I said, but you got to move now. You can't wait for Kurt and the team to get our stuff together. So I said, here's what I'm going to lay on you. And we talked through it. And then I said, let me simplify it for you. You're going to do your traditional raise, and then you're going to start thinking of an alternative approach.
Right.
And this alternative approach is going to rely heavily on your people skills, what you got, your charisma, your caring about the funder and what they care about. So you went to the same person that already funded you.
Yeah.
And you had a conversation where you were searching for.
Yeah, basically, like I needed to raise, but they had some problems that they're figuring out in their industry. So let me just give you some context. In the construction industry, they have a mental health crisis going on. In fact, it's like the highest rate of suicide in any other workforce type position in the United States. 43 construction workers out of 100,000 take their lives every year. And it's simply because they're working like really long shifts, sometimes in like really weird situations where they're working in the evening rather than daylight. But they have these pressures of having 0 incidents on site. Like they can't make any mistakes. And these projects are super long. They're like sometimes multiple years long. And they're always under this pressure of like getting the project done faster and faster every single time and under budget. So it's just causing them to break. And I was talking to the client about it. Now here's the thing. I didn't necessarily ask him about it. I told him like, hey, I was looking into this. Is this a problem that you guys are like facing? He was like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. Like, we don't know what to do about it. And I said, well, hey, I have this pilot program idea that I want to talk to you about where we could collect some biometric data and we can do some other things that will give us some insights on sleep patterns, on heart rate, on all kinds of other types of things so that maybe we could, you know, get ahead of some things and create some like preventative programs. Would you be interested in that? He was like, send me a proposal.
Now, did you have a personal connection to with the family?
Yeah,
member?
no, yeah, and that's the thing. He had a family member that committed suicide, and this was the owner of the business, okay? And when you can create that emotional connection, and you have that moment of like empathy, like all the walls come down.
Now,
all the walls
now
come.
freeze real quick, guys. Put yourself in the mind of the founder that's now talking to whoever this person is. Okay? Ask yourself, does this founder of this construction company, if he knows he can make a difference and they have the capital to do it, do you think that they're thinking about return at that moment? No. Right?
Not at all.
I have some things that have happened in my family's life, right? Where I have a brother that can't drive anymore. He's had 80-something seizures. Somebody comes to me and says, I can dramatically improve your brother's life and the 4 children and his wife's life that they have. Do you think I'm thinking about return at that moment? No. If I had the means to do it, okay, let's talk. Like, what is that worth to me to know that I don't end up raising these 4 kids, right? I want you to really connect with that because I know that you guys think there's some big algorithm. There isn't. I know you think AI is writing checks. It won't for quite some time. A human being is deciding to write you a check. Now, here's what's really cool about what Yves did. Was the second check they gave you bigger than the first one?
Yeah.
So the second check was substantially larger than the first check.
Yeah.
And it came with different terms as well.
Well, yeah, and again, like, if you think about what they were doing before, which is like slogans, like, putting out social media posts about how they're supporting, suicide prevention, or a slogan of like, call this phone number, but they're not seeing any results, basically they're willing to throw money at, somebody who's willing to champion the thing, right? So, I mean, we're talking like 800K. And I was like, all right, bet. Like, let's go.
Congratulations, brother. Okay, we're gonna do a deeper dive with Yves and really go through that process. I just want you guys to know, A, I'm not crazy, and B, this happens every single day. What I started noticing a couple of years ago when I really kind of humbled myself after 15 years of doing nothing but funding, I started looking at the numbers going down that the VCs were allocating. I was like 330 billion, 220 billion, 150 billion. We've seen a drop through the VCs, but the VCs, I can say this, most of us are glorified brokers. It's not mostly our capital when we're the general partner in a fund. It's LP money. LP is the limited partner. They're the ones that put up most of the money. LPs are starting to get smart. They're starting to say, wait a minute, I can probably do this better than you can. You're not creating the returns. So I started noticing about 2-something years ago, and I always had this dream of streamlining the fundraising process because I've spent 20 years of my life dealing with phone calls every day. Kurt, I'm out of capital. What am I going to do? Right? And then I noticed that the total amount of liquidity moving into startups was not changing. It was constant, but the number coming through VCs was not. It was dropping. And I said, where is the money? Who's got my money? I'm like, oh my gosh, it's coming from these other sources. And if you want to know where the 3 largest sources of capital for this sponsored capital piece are, is the Fortune 2000, family offices, and private equity. I use this example on our home turf. Anybody been to the practice facility for the Raiders in town? Okay. There's, on the side of that, there's a Utah company, Intermountain Healthcare, and it says it on the side of the building in gigantic letters. I don't know the exact number, but I'm pretty sure that cost $14 million. Now, do you think that Intermountain Healthcare gets to own a part of the Raiders for that? Nope. You think they get to cash flow off that? Nope. That's why I call it sponsored capital. Okay? Hope that starts to become an avenue. It's not a perfect capital type. There's challenges with it. It comes down to how good are you at building relationships with those that want to have an aligned interest with you, aligned capital. Mr. John Franco, come on up, buddy. Okay, so John Franco, have a seat, buddy, is a good example of someone that I'm wooing to the Vegas ecosystem. In a short couple of days, you get it.
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
So he lives in New Jersey. Tell us just real quick about your story and what you're building.
Well, first of all, guys, I'd like to make a confession. It's my first time in Vegas. And they say that whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But I'm here to tell you that that's not going to happen because I've met some great people here. I've met this gentleman in person. I've met some of you guys in person. And Vegas, it's astonishing in my eyes. Not only because it's entertaining, I haven't entertained myself, but because there are many visionaries in this space, people that want to change the world. And that aligns with my vision of doing something that leaves a legacy for my name and for the people around me. And I think a lot of us, we all align with that purpose, right? We understand that not everything is money. Because once you get money, there's no purpose. I've learned that. But once you have a purpose, there's a direction that you follow in life. And, in my last 3 days here in Vegas, I've learned that there's a great ecosystem here looking to do things for humanity. That your network is your net worth, right? That the person you meet might be the person that opens the next door for you. So I take each one of you guys here very seriously. We're gonna be very best friends.
So where'd you grow up?
So let me get into that before I get emotional again. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic until I was 11. When I was 11, I came to the United States with my father. And there's a story that I always look back to, when it comes to me living in DR. My father, he was a businessman himself. And, when I was growing up, I saw his business ventures. He used to buy land. He had ice cream um, factories, right? One of the biggest ones in the Dominican Republic. And I used to see money all over my house. This guy had money like I couldn't even put together in my head, right? But he mismanaged himself, right? And we went broke. That's why we came to the United States. And so it was that period of time I went from, living a very comfortable life to living a very uncomfortable life, right? A life that I don't want my kids to live. I don't want certain people in my circle to go through those things, right? When I was 16, after we came into the United States, my father left and I stood in the United States by myself. So, that's when my journey as an entrepreneur started. And I was like, I'm going to be better than my father, right? But the reason I wanted to be better than my father wasn't necessarily the money. It was to prove him a point that he did the wrong thing, right? The wrong thing of leaving me when I felt that I needed him. And
Why don't you tell them what you're building?
yeah. So in regards to what I do today, I fight for the small medium businesses.
Hey, real quick, guys, I just want to say something. I understand we get very attached to the vehicle that we're currently building. Obviously, you now know that John Franco is much more than just a guy building an e-com business, and he's going to share that, right?
Yeah.
I, for many years, saw my entire identity wrapped in my entrepreneurship, which I'm incredibly grateful for. I can't imagine waking up every day doing anything other than what I get to do, the problems I get to work on. But I now see myself as more than just an entrepreneur. Like, it doesn't define me. And so I appreciate your authenticity and your vulnerability with us today.
Thank you. So just to give you guys an overlook of what's happening in my space, in my world, one of the traumas in my life was obviously seeing my father, going from a businessman to just a person that mismanaged himself. I've seen the same pattern happen over and over to small, medium business owners. I'm pretty sure you guys grew up in neighborhoods where those business owners faded away with time. And what I see is that we're moving in a very fast-paced environment, an era of humanity where in a year things change so much, right? So what's happening is that the small, medium businesses, they're not getting the support they need to stay alive, to strive, to follow the American dream. The American dream was a thing for the United States, a thing that became inaccessible to over 87% of the Americans. And it's only going to get worse. So in my e-commerce platform, what I've understood is that the future is in the e-commerce space. Mom and pop stores, they got to shift to the e-commerce space to survive. Nobody's going to be able to just rely on brick and mortar. So I put myself ahead of the curve. I was an e-commerce seller myself. It's how I actually started generating massive capital in comparison to the people around me to invest into a technology that I put my heart and life into. I put all of my savings, $1.1 million into that. So I'm literally only liquid through that software. But the purpose of that software, it's essentially solving a major problem for small, medium businesses, a problem that hinders their growth. And that problem is accessing more suppliers for their line of business across the United States without any limitation. A problem that corporate companies such as the Macy's and Walmarts will never have an issue with because they have the capital. So when we think about what's happening to the small, medium businesses, they're being destroyed by the Goliaths of the space. And it happened in commerce, the brick and mortar space. It's happening still, but it's also happening in the e-commerce space, right? Where these big name brands, they continue to acquire more product and limit they're competitors because nobody is really able to compete with them. And their root cause to that is because small, medium businesses, they don't have the infrastructure to continue to acquire products out of their range of business, right? You're a local business in Nevada. You're not going to source in New Jersey or New York or Florida, right? Or the middle of the country. Most likely you're going to stay in California in this side of the states, simply because that makes more sense for you financially, but because sometimes you don't have the infrastructure to breach that space. We're solving that. We're giving the small, medium business owners an opportunity to find the American dream in the e-commerce space by providing them an unlimited network of warehouses in the United States that helps them sustain their businesses through more acquisition, which is the bigger problem that I found out to be affecting these smaller businesses that we need in order to properly run a good economy.
So you came to Vegas to capitalize your business. One of the goals that we have is we really see that Vegas can become the capital of capitals. You don't necessarily need to live here. You know, you can come here, you can buy here, you can build here, but you can also fuel up the jet here. And by that, I'm saying I believe this is going to be a city as we work on launching the Pitch World Series and all of these other things that we do, family office events. You know, you've been experiencing Founder Collective online every single week. We teach fundraising, fluency, topics, everything you need to learn before you go and pitch. On Tuesdays, we have these free sessions that you can come and do online. And then every Thursday, we do Pitch Kung Fu, where you start putting it all together. You know, and so one of the things I want to chat with before we let you head back to the audience is I'd like to hear the 3 or 4 or 5 main things that you've been learning in the fundraising journey. And I know you've been also coming to the Pitch Kung Fu sessions, and you've been kind of learning a lot there. So what's your experience been like, and what are kind of the things that maybe have surprised you? You know, like you came in pretty confident, and I know that you've had some moments where you're like, whoa, I've got a lot to learn here. You know, it's a full-time job to fundraise. It's entirely more challenging, takes way more time than almost any founder ever realizes, and it shouldn't be that way, but that is currently how things are. It's fairly broken.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that I learned throughout the program and everything that you've given me answers is that you're never going to stop raising capital, right? This becomes like your full-time job type of thing because your visions sometimes they exceed your financials, and as entrepreneurs, we don't easily give up, right? We're very stubborn to our ideas, and I know you guys are. So that's number one.
And one thing I'll say on this is it's a switch when a founder realizes they're going to be raising for. I had a founder come to me that we helped raise at one of the events that we did. So she came out to Investment Week LA, and she said, "Hey, I raised at your last event." I said, "That's great." And she goes, "But I'm only raising $5 million." I said, "No, you're not. You're raising $100 million over the next 10 years. You will be raising for the next 10 years." And so one of the things that has been a switch for you is you're realizing I actually do need to master fundraising. This isn't about trying to get one person to bring me their investors. This is about I'm going to be doing this for a long time. If you look at any of these big companies, Uber, Airbnb, Spotify, constantly raising for a decade. So you need to understand if you choose to build a venture versus a small business or a venture versus a small startup, you have massive capital requirements. I'm not saying this is for everyone. You need to look deep inside and ask yourself if you're really willing to do what is required. The sacrifice and the toll is massive. I'm personally going through this right now with some personal things that are happening in my life. You know, there is a tremendous amount of sacrifice. Guys, if you even understood what it's taken me as a funder, the level of delayed gratification in order to be playing the game at a high level with capital, there's a switch you need to turn on and say, I'm now a fundraiser and I need to be willing to learn this craft. It is an art form and it is not something that you just stumble into. You know, especially if you really want to master it. So that's a really big switch. I want to make sure you guys get that. Hey, I'm going to become fundraising fluency. I'm going to become fundraising fluent.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
Well, the next thing is obviously that as you're working with high caliber people that don't have all the time in the world to listen to you, so you got to pitch like in 2-3 minutes, right?
He came to me with a 30-minute pitch. I was like, no, bro.
Yeah. I was trying to make friends, you know.
That's enough about me. What do you think about me?
Yeah. So,
Okay, what else?
and lastly, that there's not a day that we wake up that we should stop learning. Kurt has been coaching me in this journey. I'm a baby. I'm taking baby steps. I've gotten criticism, constructive one, which is good, because I adapt. I want to be better. I want to, make sure my vision comes to life. And every person that I come across has feedback for me. So, I implement it and make myself stronger every single time.
You want as many at-bats as possible. You're always raising, you're always selling and marketing, and you're always recruiting into your company. And every single time as a communicator, as a leader, as an enroller, what I look for in founders that I want to back is, are they enrolling? This is a transformational term. Who are the best enrollers that the world's ever seen? Jesus, Muhammad, Mother Teresa, Gandhi. These people could not be stopped, and some of them had zero technology. And yet their way of being was as such that people said, I'm going to follow you. I believe in you. I'll invest in you.
Yeah.
I'll give you access to capital. I'll allocate capital to you, or as my buddy Roy likes to say, I'll accelerate you somehow through relationships, right? That's enrollment, guys. That way of being is just absolutely critical in what you're doing. And so always being willing to learn and being coachable is something else that I really look for. That feedback process. How many times have you pitched? One of the things we really harp on with our online sessions is, have you talked to 100 clients and customers? I can always tell when a founder hasn't because they don't know their stuff. Why do we not? We do arguably more pitch events than anyone else. Why is it, Kurt, if you're a tech-savvy guy and you love fintech, that you don't allow slides? I want founders that can pitch in the wild, anytime, any place, anywhere, with anyone. I want them to be deadly and dangerous. I want you to be able to deliver a 2-3 minute pitch that's so good inside of a 20-minute conversation, the person has no idea. 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. No slides. All that tech that breaks and all this stuff, none of it freaking matters. It comes down to the founder that will put the ball in the end zone every single time, come hell or high water.
Yeah. I learned that the hard way.
What else you got?
Well, the other thing is that you don't like me using my glasses.
So he started pitching with glasses on. What's the problem with that? A barrier between the person that's the funder. They want to look you in the eyes. They want to know that they can trust you. They want to understand the journey of their capital. John Franco, tell me the future of e-com. And they want to be able to look in your eyes and know what's up, and you've created a barrier with glasses. Who's with me on that? All right. All right, buddy. We'll do it. John Franco is going to keep coming back.
Every month.
I'm guilty for pitching with glasses on.
I was going to criticize you afterwards.
Yeah. You see my pitch. I pitch with glasses.
You got it, brother. You got it, brother. All right, next we've got a new friend, Rehan Huda. Come on up. Who doesn't love Canadians, right? And guess what? It turns out some of the Canadians can raise like mother effers. All right, come up here, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, so no pressure, but you've had 3 exits. And what was the biggest? What was the biggest one?
The biggest, for my investors, my last 3 IPOs were all 10 to 20x returns
Sure.
for the investors within 3 years, and that. So
300 million. He won't say it. I'll say
okay,
it.
so and they were public companies, and
I just
everybody
outed
said
you.
it. So, anyways, and we're hopefully we're going for the biggest one, the
Right.
next one we got coming in. So, anyways, I just want to say for everyone, I didn't know what to expect when I got here. I heard great things about Mr. Walker here, and I'm really impressed. Like I have to say, I'm going to bring something like this to Canada, right?
Let's do
So
it.
we
Let's
got
do
to
it.
bring it to Canada
Yeah.
because this is incredible, and I can't believe you've been sort of volunteering your time like this for this.
It
Because
is a team effort, to be clear. It's a team effort.
yeah,
There's a team of
mean,
us.
I mean, this is great. For those of you guys who are getting into the business, this is amazing. I never thought it would be like this, and but I heard a lot of great things, and just what I've seen so far, I'm really
it's
impressed.
so great that you've been able to
Yeah.
come to our events this week.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
one of the things I want to get from an insight perspective is, okay, you've done this thing that even really great founders that have exits don't experience. You've done the IPO thing, which pros and cons. And you've taken it to some pretty substantial exits. What are you doing differently now? Obviously the market conditions have changed and shifted. What are you doing differently now? What's different in your approach?
What's different, and I'm much more conscious about right now, is you have to know where market trends are and where the capital is going.
Right.
And before, sometimes you would think as an entrepreneur, I got a great idea. I got a great idea, great technology, and I want to do it, etc. But the capital markets are in a completely different place.
There's a cycle, guys, to fundraising. We went through a 15-year run where the founders were the thing. And they're always the thing because you're the X factor in your company. There is no exit. There is no anything, no return without you. But we go through these, and the legal agreements shift. A convertible note versus a safe. They shift to where it's pro-founder or pro-funder. We're in a pro-funder cycle right now because capital is not scarce, but it is in the mind of many founders. They think that there isn't as much capital out there. They're not understanding that deals are getting funded every single day. But again, that there is a cycle. So you're saying you understand that.
Much more deeper, and capital markets move that way. And so you have to sometimes make sure that you've got the buzzwords in your pitch.
Right.
Like right now, obviously over last year too, generative AI. You got to make sure in discerning in industries.
Something I want to
you've got
point out
something
here,
like that,
guys. This guy has had 3 exits into the multi-hundred millions, and he's still talking about buzzwords. Why is that? Narrative. The power of narrative.
Exactly. Just our friend was saying, these guys only have 2-3 minutes attention spans, right? And you have to catch them early.
Right.
You have to catch them in that pitch. And if you don't catch it, right, in the first few minutes, and so that is so important, right?
So it's like you understand that it's both the messenger, the way of being, paired with the right message
Exactly.
to the right audience.
Exactly.
That story told over and 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 over 200 plus times to qualified investment.
Exactly, because I just couldn't believe the herd mentality, but it's out there. It's a herd mentality that's out there, whether it's VCs, whether private equity
And
family
the
offices.
FOMO, the fear of missing out. that
Exactly.
Some of these funders have.
Exactly.
They hear that you've got a lead investor that's so and so. Oh, okay.
Because
I
I
like
would
to make
say,
an allocation.
Exactly.
Wait, what do you do?
Exactly. I would say most of the money I've raised like hundreds of millions of dollars. I've raised a lot of money for companies, etc. Right? And I would have to say that FOMO, right, fear of missing out, is probably driven more of my investment money in than anything else.
So maybe what are some little tips that you think that you can use to switch that on? Obviously, you can back up.
Yes. I mean, you it's got to be a rush, right? I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. We had our company was uplisting to NASDAQ. One of the companies I raised funds for, I helped found, brilliant company, and it's going through the roof this year. And we had an investment bank. I won't give any names. A Wall Street investment bank. Well, intention, very good reputation, mid-tier bank, and we wanted to go on NASDAQ very quickly. Want to raise the funds, and they were taking their time and doing it in a relaxed way. And we needed the funds by this time. We wanted to go on NASDAQ and uplist very quickly, and they were getting some interest, but it was just taking a long time. And we said, this is not good. But we went to the #1 investment bank on Wall Street for raising funds, Wainwright, those guys. And they raised money like there's no tomorrow. 10 years, the #1. So they took our pitch, right? They took our pitch, and they called some of the same clients as the other investment bank did. And then they basically called them up, listen, we're oversubscribed, we're uplisting to NASDAQ, and we're closing in the next 48 hours. That's what they tell them.
Send us your allocation.
Yes, an allocation. And the guy goes, that other bank called us 2 weeks ago. We're analyzing, we're looking at this, our analyst on us. And the guy simply said, hold it. I don't think you understood what I'm saying. We're closing in 48 hours. We're oversubscribed. We're an allocation.
Let me say it again.
And then the guy goes, and he would just keep repeating the same thing. Right? Are you in or you're out? It's up to you. And then
That's posture.
they raised $16 million for us in 48 hours.
Love it.
And then the other guys could not raise. We're talking about Wall Street investment banks.
That's the power of relationship paired with the right posture, guys.
Yeah. And that's the attitude you have to have. You got to come in there, and these guys, that's why these guys are #1, 10 years, more money on Wall Street than any other investment bank, right? So that's the attitude you have to have. And I would say that fear of missing out probably accounts for most of the money I've raised. Rather than the quality of my deal and that.
You don't want to be overconfident. Yeah. It's just the right amount of secure confidence, knowing, hey, I got this. I'm going to make this happen. This is happening.
Exactly. You have to have a good deal. You have to have a good deal. You have to have this and this and that.
Fundamentals. Yeah.
But at the same time, right? How do you approach it, right? What's the attitude, And also you have to know who's across the table for you.
Do you guys see why I say all the time fundraising is largely a marketing exercise? That is really what it is. We'll have to do this again.
Wonderful. Happy to share.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right. I love new funder friends. Mr. Michael Bresler, come on up, buddy. I've been hearing about this guy for a long time. We have a bunch of mutual friends. Because we're short on time, I'm gonna skip through his background. So how many of you guys know what Agora Financial is? Okay, cool. At least 3 of us are really impressed with what they've done. $40 newsletter, multi-billion-dollar company built on copywriting. And that's the reason I say copywriting is the top marketing skill, copywriting and customer journey, probably paired. So you basically got one of the many jobs you had while you were with Agora was that you got to work with a multi-million person database of investors that already had high trust because you had helped them to make a bunch of money.
That's right.
And you got to deal with all the investments and the opportunities that Agora had.
Yep.
And then you made a crazy decision to leave and to go start Disruptive with Nathaniel. And he's going to come join us here in a minute. But, so let's talk through that. I mean, you were really open and real with me. This is a guy that has some real experience, some stuff even that I can extrapolate and that I get to learn from. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you.
But we were having a conversation around, Kurt, the way that I'm raising is going to have to shift pretty dramatically.
Yes.
So walk us through that real quick, if you'd be so open.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so being at Agora for over 10 years, I mean, Agora, if you look them up, I mean, they're essentially the OG in direct marketing, right? And Agora,
Which is the power of email.
the power of email.
And copywriting has one purpose and one purpose only, to sell. That's
sell.
it. And
Right. So
incredibly
it's
good
right.
at
It's about building urgency and building a feeling of scarcity, right? And that's what we were just talking about, right? So over that time period, obviously I learned a lot as far as how to create that through copy and also through funding. So a lot of my shift, I was there for a long time, and I had the opportunity to build out like some Reg A, Reg CF, a lot of opportunities for the investors. 15% of them were accredited already. So there's a big opportunity to get into deal flow, right? So one of the things we transitioned around was the idea of selling a subscription and then understanding lifetime value and understanding that what you could really do to create value for your customer was to actually bring them deal flow, right? Because it wasn't just about market investment. Right. It was about, because a lot of these guys, they were, or ladies, I mean, they were high net worth people, right? And to be diverse in their investment, I mean, the market was only one part of it.
And
right?
bringing them something that they didn't have.
Exactly. And so a lot of what we did was around technology, but a lot of it was hard asset. And that's where we started talking about the hard asset piece, right? So, within the fundraising side, it's always about understanding your audience and understanding how to speak to your audience, right? And so I think the one thing I was mentioning to Kurt around, shifting how we were raising was number one was, as soon as I came over, I started opening my Rolodex, which included a lot of the folks that we were able to raise from. But quickly also realized that it was easy to raise from them for a couple of reasons. Number one was there was this brand and loyalty, right? And so as a startup, right, that wasn't something to take advantage of because they didn't really know who we were and we didn't, put out a brand. And if you go to the website is very plain, but that was all very intentional, right? Because we didn't want to get out there that big. And then the other piece was the fact that once you had to start going down the road and really exhausting your own time to be able to convince them, right? Once you saw that they weren't interested, it really didn't matter and you just had to walk away. And so what we started quickly finding was that, and I think it could be obvious to most people, but it was a learning experience for me, which was that, when you pitch a person who's usually interested in a hard asset, whether it's gold or mostly real estate folks, their metrics and the whole idea of vision for them is very different than in the AI space, even if they understand the AI space, right? Because a lot of them, they want to know the very simple metrics around the properties, around rent roll, right? It's very different when you have speculative or projected revenue, when you have like a huge idea.
None of us know exactly what AI is going to be and what the metrics are going to end up being. Like this is all getting turned into stuff that we can track as time goes on. But we're living it right now.
And then the other thing,
real estate or some other asset that's tried and true.
And then the other piece is that we haven't raised outside capital, right? And so from a valuation perspective and looking at the comparative markets around other AI companies, right? I mean, we have a high, well, not a high valuation, but we have a valuation that's very comparable, right, to other AI companies. But we also have revenue that's coming in right now, and we have some very strong near-term revenue, whereas other companies don't actually have a product to sell.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very different.
Can you come up here, buddy? This is Nathaniel Hunter. Stay up here. So this is the perfect time to segue into the backstory, and then we're going to talk about a decision that they made to bootstrap up into a certain point. So share with them a little of the stuff that we've discussed. Yeah, into the mic, please.
Yep.
And you've done some really big things with some really big people.
For that.
Yes, it
okay,
is.
That's
It
what
is,
I was
yeah.
just checking.
Don't ask questions. I'm the one asking questions.
It's not working then. But it is. Okay.
Yeah. So, real quick backstory. I mean, the stuff you've done with Apple, Lucasfilm, George Lucas, Skywalker Ranch, all that.
Yeah.
And then deciding that there was some aspects of that maybe left some things to be desired that you needed to go and explore on your own as an entrepreneur again.
Yeah.
And then let's get into.
I will try to do the 60-second condensed version.
Yeah.
Born into the carnival, 0 to 16, traveled this country with my parents every week, different city, literally a carny growing up. Moved to the Bay Area when I was 16 as my parents split up.
And you're still building circuses now.
Yeah, still. No, we ran with Ringling, Barnum, and Bailey Circus. I was a latchkey kid running around and learned everything early in terms of how to hustle, how to run games at the age of 9, 10 years old, and then use that to my advantage because people like a cute kid, right? Get them to play the game and stuff. And found my way into Silicon Valley and fell in love with it. Worked on dozens of films, worked for George Lucas directly up at the ranch, worked with Zuckerberg on social games, 6 million users a month, 150,000 an hour, so scalable tech when there was no Amazon back. Well, there was Amazon, but it wasn't like it is now where you can spin up a server. We had to do it all by hand.
Yeah.
And then mobile applications, 18 million users across 4 dozen apps. And then I went to Apple in 2017 and rebuilt their entire imaging studio. So every image that's anyone has seen since 2017 came from the team that I built on a billboard, on a website, et cetera. I saw that Apple, who arguably has more money than God, right, as a single company, they had a problem doing this. And so I thought to myself, what the hell is a small and medium-sized business going to do if the largest company on the planet, not arguably, completely, realistically, can't even deal with this? And so started a company and built it up to a $700 million valuation and got scared because we were going public on the NASDAQ and watched an external CEO completely tank the entire company. I raised $25 million in 11 days, and it's true, the hustle, you have to do it. That was 120 meetings over the course of 11 days, 10 to 12 a day, just pitch. And
Imagine if that was automated.
you can't automate that though. That's the thing. You can't automate that.
You can
human
automate the
connection.
introductions to the beginning, and then you still have to pitch.
You still have to pitch. You still have to give the
pitch.
story.
You
Still have to make that emotional connection because that's everything. You have to find that audience, and then watch that. And it wasn't about the money. I had 7 figures of my own money into it, savings and everything. It was about the families and all the people that had built this into the dream. I had 137 employees over 35 countries, completely virtual, long before COVID.
Yeah.
And wound up leaving that company on January 3rd and started Disruptive January 4th in this city.
That's right.
In this city. I was here for CES and made a decision at that point to build in a completely different way. DAOs, the decentralized autonomous organizations, I wanted to do it, but too bureaucratic at this point. It needs way more structure for it to actually, not quite. But built something similar where looking to bring all these other folks in that I had known over the years and bring them in as founders or founding members into the different companies that could support an entire ecosystem. So built out 13 different corporations and used AI to do it. Used AI. I've been working in AI for a long time, back from the Matrix films and working with NVIDIA, the early machine learning stages. And so very comfortable working into it and built 13 different corporations that all support each other, that all are structured in a way that they cross-license and work just like real partnerships do in the world. and did that in a way so that everyone had an equity stake in what they were building, which makes it personal.
Yep.
Right? It makes it their livelihood. It makes it something that they're fighting for every single day, and built up a company into a 9-figure valuation without raising a single dollar of capital.
So before we move on, I want to hear what the thought process was of deciding to really bootstrap to this point prior to raising, get the valuation to a certain point, and why that's a strategy. This wasn't a happenstance. This was an intentional decision
Very
you guys
much
made.
so, yeah.
Right? So walk us through that real quick.
I had raised, I lived in the Bay Area for close to 30 years. I was with Travis when he was first bringing up his
Uber.
black Uber car service. And we were in literally like Motel 6 rooms, like, you know, little conference rooms, and little, you know, we were pitching to each other first to kind of like we're doing here, right? You bring up pitches, and everyone was constructively giving feedback. And I honestly thought it was crazy at the first. I'm like, this is stupid. Who's going to do this? The taxi cabs are king. Like, yeah. And most people thought that, but he kept at it. And
boy, did he ever.
yeah. But during that process, I saw the same thing happening, which was, and I've done this myself many times. I've had exits and I've had failures. And this process of raising capital for an idea and then trying to pivot, I've done it so many times. I watched so many friends do it so many times, successfully and unsuccessfully, that it just didn't make sense to me how that worked. Like, because somebody's putting money into an idea, like, if you bring intentional leaders into your organization that all believe in the dream, then you should be able to build that dream before you take that capital in, which reduces the risk for those investors and gives them the ability to see an actual product, to feel it, to touch it. And now it's not investing in a dream, it's investing in a reality.
I will say this, guys. What he's building, I define as a compound startup, which means it's basically a transformer or like a Voltron of other startups all together.
Yep.
This is not for beginner entrepreneurs by any stretch. I'm going through this myself. People say, what are you doing? And I'm saying, well, we do these 3 things, and this is how it relates to
We're doing
the
crazy
dream
shit.
of building founder funders, right? It's a machine. All right, we got to move on,
Yes.
guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Welcome to Vegas, guys. All right. Next up, Mr. Dave Berlin. Mr. Dave Berlin, come on up. Come on up. Brother. Yes. All right. So really can't have Dave in the room and not have him come up and talk, because he's an important part of the ecosystem here. He's doing a ton of stuff, just did Global Entrepreneurship Week. Thank you for your service as well, brother.
Thanks, man.
So appreciate our veterans so much. So you and I have had a long relationship. Sometimes maybe a little bit more like brothers, where we're like, hey, I don't know if I like you so much or whatever, right? But what's important though is Dave just makes things happen. He's all heart. And I just want to give you an opportunity before we move on to share what you're excited about in 2024.
Yeah.
And the stuff that you're doing, and just what, speak into your vision for Vegas. We talked about Pursue Vegas and all that. So briefly, if you can, real quick, just share that with us.
Wow. Well, first of all, the best advice I was ever given is have a 5-minute, a 15-minute, and a 50-minute keynote ready at any given time. So I'll pull out the 50-minute. You guys ready? So the 5-minute. First of all, my name's Dave Berlin. I am a Marine Corps veteran and an entrepreneur. I dedicate a lot of my time and energy to all of the organizations that serve veterans, primarily in the ones of post-traumatic growth. So anything that has to do with education, employment, and especially entrepreneurship, I get fired up about. I lived the dream for the last 4 years of serving an organization called Bunker Labs. We help veterans grow and accelerate businesses. I'm switching over to a company called Vets in Tech. Vets in Tech is really good about getting veterans and their families. This is what I love about both organizations. They include the family aspect. So spouses, dependents, they'll get them trained in tech jobs and then match them with our partners.
Because the spouses are coming along with. This is
They
like
are,
when the
they
founder
are,
builds
yeah.
a startup, the family's
Yeah.
coming with.
So Vets in Tech, our partners based out of Silicon Valley is Uber. It's Uber, it's Oracle, it's Meta, Google. All of the big tech companies. They've been building those partnerships for quite some time. As they cross over here into Vegas, our biggest partners are J.P. Morgan Chase. I just partnered them with Tao Hospitality.
Love it.
But also DraftKings. DraftKings is a big supporter. So I'm really excited to see what happens with all of the veteran stuff that I'm doing. And then to speak to Global Entrepreneurship Week, the thing about Global Entrepreneurship Week, it's been a challenge year after year for the times that I've volunteered as the community organizer. 2021, nothing happened because we were still coming out of pandemic and everyone's like, let's get back to normal. 2022, we did 25 events across the city all in 1 week, same week as everybody else. Does anybody here know what Global Entrepreneurship Week is? Show of hands. Show of hands who does not know what Global Entrepreneurship Week is. Global Entrepreneurship Week is an organization founded by the Kauffman Foundation. It's a way to organize and catalyze startup communities all around the globe.
Shout out to Kansas City.
So shout out to Kansas City. They have we got Kansas City people in the house. Where's the best barbecue? Nope.
Nope.
No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
It's on the list.
But no. So what happens is 1 week dedicated in November. Community organizers and state coordinators all around the United States and all around the world catalyze events. And the goal is how many events can we have as an ecosystem and celebrate what we're doing. So to me, it's a perfect finish line as we get close to the end of the year. Last year, we did great. I was the only community organizer, but we had a lot of people step up, a lot of people participate, a lot of people catalyze events. This year, the biggest win, let me share the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is it was the same week as F1. Now, I don't know if anybody's from Vegas or lives in Vegas, but we all had mixed reviews of, do we leave the house? If we do, we're only leaving the house if we have tickets to F1 and everybody else, right? Nobody's going anywhere because we don't know what it's going to do. I had some people, they didn't throw rocks at me. Somebody did put bologna on my car. I'm just kidding. But no, I had several people say, bro, you should probably change the date for your little Global Entrepreneurship Week. And I don't know if anyone's ever tried to change the date for a global organization, but it's trying to it's kind of like trying to change Easter. Like nobody knows who you talk to for that. It's just Easter falls on this Sunday this year. Right. Get over it. Deal with it.
Tell us about Pursue.
The last thing I wanted to say on GW is that the big step forward is we had 2 new community organizers step up.
Shout out to Elias and Megan.
So, and I just found this out yesterday. We are going to be receiving an award from the Lieutenant Governor's office on January 11th, CES week, for our dedicated service to that. Thank you. I say that like that's not for me, that's for us, whether you guys realize it or not, because now we're going to have the recognition to where, I hope I can cuss on here. Like, I know for a fact that what happened with the challenges last year and the challenges this year, it's never going to fucking happen again, right? So this year, we're going to have a lot of momentum. We're going to have a lot of the support. So moving forward, I'm really excited to see what we bring together, which takes me to my final project. So Pursue Vegas. Pursue Vegas is a vision that I had back when I was in Tulsa. It was more of like a media agency, but community-based, right? So how can we show people what's going on in the city? There's versions of people that do it. There's foodies that go out and say, oh my gosh, look at all this amazing stuff that I have. Even somebody remarkable like Keith Lee. Keith Lee goes in and talks about his experience that he had with that restaurant. For me, I want to flip the camera around. I want to showcase the people that make this city our city, right? I want to show the people like everybody here in this room that continues to show up on a freaking Saturday and say, hey, I want to be a part of this community. I want to do something. I don't know some people might not know what that is, but some people, when they find that thing, they just grab onto it and they want to go, right? So Pursue Vegas, I did a series of videos. It's all around, highlighting the entrepreneur organizations. It's all around highlighting the restaurants. It's really showcasing the people of the community, flipping that camera around and asking them what makes Vegas great and making all of you the superstars. And the mission is very simple. It's to connect the people of our city so together we can show the world who we really are.
Love it, dude.
And
Dave go ahead.
The next path with that will be the Pursue Vegas podcast that rolls out soon.
Yep.
And I don't want to change the world. I just want to change the way that the world looks at Las Vegas.
Damn straight. Thanks, Dave. Mr. Dave Berlin. I hit the 5 minutes? I don't know. So those of you that were at the investment conference the other day, I rolled out what I believe the 5 verticals are that Las Vegas should be focused on. I love that Dave's working on the one that I'm most excited about that is probably the dark horse, which is content. Anything MarTech, top of funnel, community tech, social tech. I want that to be here. I want the best content creators in the world to be here. Mr. Melvin Valentine Jr., can you come up here, please? All right. This is one of the other troublemakers in the band that I want to introduce you guys to. Guys, you guys are cool if we get personal in here, get vulnerable in here, right? So you came out to LA. We hung out for Investment Week LA.
Yeah, we rocked it. We crushed it. Vegas did its thing.
Absolutely. Everyone in LA was like, where'd you get all these people? I'm like, this is the crew from Vegas. Vegas came out. We turned up. We did a bunch of panels. You did a rockin' DEI panel with Jennifer Williams from Diverse from New York City.
Yep.
Michelle, your wife, was there as well. There's a few other people on that panel. Another thing that is really important to you, and I'd love for you to speak into your vision, both for Vegas and just in general for entrepreneurship when it comes to founder mental health. And then let's have a conversation about money mindset.
Yeah, I think, mental health is critical in everything that we pursue. I think specifically, there's a big neglect in startup culture that we don't prioritize mental health. A lot of time, we see the lifestyle and the success of the entrepreneur, but we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I'm glad that people spoke about some of the sacrifices that you end up making, right? So I think there's a lot of self-awareness, know yourself. And sometimes you need life experiences to kind of know yourself. But, I was talking to one of my friends and we were on a call and he was super excited. They made 100-something million, guy exited and all that. And then he said, yeah, but his wife left with his business partner. And it was like, okay, like I mean, but it was like that moment of, was this a win? Like you know what I'm trying to say? Like, was it worth the sacrifice? Right? That's every individual to, answer those questions, right? We always hear about rich people's kids and how miserable and, so it's just something for you as an individual to know that, as you pursue success, there's sacrifice, life's all about trade-offs. And as long as you're willing to make those trade-offs and can live with yourself, but sometimes we don't see the trade-offs that we're making as we go through that.
Yeah. So in the LA session, I remember it was pretty fun. You had talked about how you are still selling your wife every single day. And we talked about how men and women in their own way, differently. When we're building a venture, we're just constantly selling. We're constantly enrolling. We're constantly having to reinforce this frame that we have. So I wanted you to kind of talk to us a little bit about that. Again, people get so focused on the mechanics, which is the tactics of, hey, Kurt, what do I need to do to fundraise, that they forget that they are the thing that will determine whether or not they're successful in raising. Literally, it's 80% of it is this, the approach. 80% of it is the way they show up. 20% of it's the mechanics, the how, right?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to that, I always use the analogy like fundraising is like dating, right? So, and a lot of times, if you don't go back to high school, middle school, whenever you started to date, that anxiety and that fear of rejection. I mean, the vast majority of people are scared of rejection, right? So you getting a stomach for rejection is critical. How you process psychologically rejection will make or break your success as an entrepreneur, right? So when it comes to my wife, I'm constantly selling her on the ideal of being with me, right? Because the moment you stop selling that, that's when you head to divorce court, right? So when you understand that you don't take nothing for granted. Life itself is a sales game. You constantly have to sell yourself to people and persuade and influence them to see things your way. If you got kids, you know how that goes, right? You got to sell them on taking a bath at night, right? So like, right. So, you could either have that carrot or you could have that stick. And it's better when you know how to dangle that carrot and you know how to influence somebody in a more positive way. And that's the art of being a salesman. But the core to that, as mental health goes, is you have to get a stomach for rejection.
You and I have really deep and really vulnerable and challenging conversations around race, religion, and resources. And so I think that it'd be interesting for us to talk about that. How do we live in a world where we recognize that women, veterans, minorities, diverse groups may not have traditionally the same level of access to resources, same level of education, Strong family unit. I came from an incredibly abundant set of parents. They never funded any of my businesses. They didn't fund almost anything in my life, really. But at the end of the day, my way of being of abundance comes from their example, right? That's something that I can't overstate how much of an advantage that gave me going out into the world, or even just having a father at home. Some of these things that we take for granted. So you have these constant conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion. You have these constant conversations around ESG and all that. So where do we find this middle ground of recognizing that we get to create this access to some of these things, and at the same time, safeguarding against some of the energy of scarcity and victimhood that can sometimes creep in?
That's a great question. I think that I think it's going to be very easy and coming up in the future, because I think we're all going to experience some tough roads down ahead with all the changes and the disruptions that are going to go on with technology. So with that being said, I think a lot of us have first world privileges, even the ones that feel like we're oppressed in the ghetto. I mean, I start with my students all the time, is you got to have a global perspective. So, you're doing better than the vast majority of human beings on the planet, right? Like that's where that victimhood comes in, right? Do you understand that your toilet at home is a supreme luxury of the human experience for the vast majority of people on the planet, and the vast majority of people that have ever lived on planet Earth? Running water is a marvel, right? So once you get into that state of abundance, so even if you're living in the historic West Side, right, like you still have to honor and respect and appreciate where we're at in human history, where the poorest people in American society are living better than kings of the earth, right? This is a human, right? So once you understand that and you have that perspective, and now you're not in that victimhood, and then you see your abundance, then you can start doing things dynamically that you have never done before. On the other side, right, of the track, I have more white friends that have baby mama drama than a lot of my black friends now. So it is like I've been saying, like the whole world is becoming a ghetto, like right, like literally, like you're seeing in America third world conditions, third world poverty, right? So in that, I think that a lot of the stuff that I'm all about unity, bringing us together, and I think a lot of the stuff that's dividing us politically right now will be erased pretty soon, because we're going to get back to nature and some fundamentals, and now we're going to be able to see that survival of the species in itself is at stake, and that in itself will be a very humbling experience for people to look at a bigger picture than all the confusion that we're having right now, right? When you're just worried about how to get through the next day, right? This is a first world privilege for the stuff that we politic over, right? So a reckoning is coming, and I think that'll be good for all of us as we transition to this new world that we're building.
To make sure we have our house prepared, right? One of the things that I was taught is gratitude is the key to increase, that we're not given more, whether you believe in God or source energy or universal, whatever. And I hope you do believe in something greater than yourself. I think it's incredibly difficult as a founder to have faith in something you can't see, you can't touch, you can feel, but that you can't see with the normal senses, because you have to create from that place. So it's always amazing to me when I meet someone that really has no belief in anything, and I'm like, well, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur then, because that's really the space that we need to operate in. And I think gratitude is the key to that. What happens when, you came from Compton, you've seen some things,
Yeah.
right? What happens when a founder or just anyone allows themselves to be in an energy of scarcity, or an energy of hey, this isn't fair, or hey, I was born in the wrong household, or whatever, as that applies even to entrepreneurship, that space, there are definitely founders where it's always, yeah, but. Well, we don't operate in that space as founders. We don't have that luxury. We just did an event in LA, and I was with somebody, an older Asian guy. And as you know, people get older, they kind of just say whatever the hell they think, and they're not going to make excuses about it. This person's helped to produce multiple billion-dollar exits for all sorts of different founders. And the first thing, as we're backstage, he just goes, when did founders become such a bunch of pussies? He's like, and he comes out and he says, being a founder is a privilege. Nobody's going to hand it to us. We got to go out and build it.
Yeah, I think the founder ecosystem is one of the best ways that middle class and upper middle class people can experience the struggle of being on the lower class, because it puts you once again in that survival state. And now you're a hunter, right? Now you're tapping into that most basic instinct of survival because you're trying to keep this company alive. You got to go out here and hunt, right? When I'm coaching folks, I try to teach them some street smarts because a lot of them don't come from the streets. So they're very trustworthy, right? And they don't know how to read a person and know when they're full of shit, right? right. Like when you come from a world where you not reading that person can cost you your life, it's a different ball game compared to now. It may cost you a couple million, but you still should be able to know when somebody is lying to you, right? Or I always tell people that I'd rather bring a gun to a knife fight than a knife to a gunfight, right? Meaning that, hey, what if that doesn't happen, right? We get all super pumped about the deal, but what if it doesn't close? And so you need to hustle like that's not going to happen. That check is not going to get cut. It's not yours until it's in your hand. So I've seen entrepreneurs where they get so excited about the possibility of these 3-4 deals closing, and then it stops their grind and it stops their hustle, where you should be functioning like, what if those threes don't close, right? Nothing closes until it's closed. So you have to keep moving forward from a deaf ground strategy as if your life was on the line. I love history. It was a story of one of the conquistadors. He burned the ship, right? Like, well, think of that mentality. Like, you're going to burn the ship?
Not
like,
going home now.
Right? And they seen all right. And they said, nobody's going home. Right? So you could take that principle for your business from that deaf ground strategy. And if you function from that standpoint, it's an energy that comes from it that you're able to overcome those obstacles.
How many of you guys understand this energy that he's talking about? When you look in someone's eyes and you know that they have the eye of the tiger.
Yeah, there you go.
You know that come hell or high water, they will make it happen. This is the only option.
And like Mike Tyson says, everybody has that, right? Everybody has a game plan until they get punched in the face, right? So it's real good to, but do you really have the eye of the tiger when life, that deal, that setback comes? Are you going to be able to get up? That's what the eye of the tiger is all about.
And this speaks also to like funder fit. It speaks also to founder fit. So as you're recruiting co-founders, as you're recruiting investors, as you're recruiting clients and customers, and now a team, ask yourself, like, what do these people believe? You know, as Simon Sinek likes to say, they don't buy what you do, they buy what you believe. But if you're listening to them, the words they use will tell you what they believe. They'll tell you if they're actually enrolled. The investor will tell you if this is strictly about money or if this is about the excitement of where that money helps this vehicle, this startup to go, and the future that it helps to create. Listen very closely to the words that people use. They'll tell you what you believe. I listen every time I'm going to work with a founder and give them some of my time, give them access to my resources. And I certainly did not listen enough when I was, in times where I've written checks to some of these founders. Some of them told me exactly what they believed. I did not listen.
Exactly. Trust me. I'll end with this note because I want to give you very practical advice. How you get the eye of the tiger is, first thing you got to do is embrace your death, right? Like, because that at the core of all fear is the fear of death. If you can get it, that's the one thing you're guaranteed. You're going to die. I think about my death a few times a week. It's humbling. It's good, right? So you think about your death, accept that you're going to die, and you don't know when you're going to die. And then you think about that funeral and who's going to be there and what are they going to say about you. And you should operate from that space because it changes how you treat people and it changes the energy that you pursue things with. If you know, I can die tomorrow. Is this my last moment on earth? Well, let me go and close that deal, right? So when you operate from that state, but most people don't even think about their death, but operate from there, and that's the foundation of that eye of the tiger.
Share a vision for Vegas real quick before we wrap.
Oh, I mean,
And beyond, even with the DEI and the founder mental health.
I think that Vegas will be that next mecca of sports entertainment, entrepreneurship, that global city. I think from a DEI standpoint, because our workforce can be automated up to 65%, and we have one of the worst school districts in the nation, and I'm excited about all that because all those we can create a technological revolution, a societal revolution. We have to in Vegas because of those factors I just described, right? And we can do our version of Silicon Valley different than the San Francisco version or the LA version where you got all this poverty right across the street. You got billions of dollars and you got homelessness and poverty right next door, right? We have the opportunity now to, from its foundation, build diversity, equity, inclusion, not because it just feels good. It's a strategic strategy to make sure that we bring as many people with us as possible because we don't want a whole bunch of bitter, poor people next to our centers of wealth. That's not good for society. That doesn't end out well for even the people with the money, right? So we need to bring in as many people to this ecosystem as possible, and we actually have that opportunity because it's at its early beginning foundational stages. And that's the center that me and Kurt don't agree on everything, but we agree that that's the foundation that we're building this partnership on.
And that's part of what's awesome about our conversations is we go deep. We have really, really, really challenging. Like there's been a couple of them where you remember I was like, dude, I wasn't able to sleep. And that's the kind of, I think, relationships that we need to have. We need to red team things. We need to challenge things. We need to, and there's a level of trust that's been built between us because I'm like, I don't know what it's like to have your experience. Yeah. And you can share and help me have perspectives that help as we build community together. Melvin Valentine Jr. All right. All right. So before I forget, at the very end, I want everyone to come down. We're going to get a group picture. I'm going to make a few comments. So our give to you guys with all the stuff we're doing with Venture House and all the events, and as you heard earlier, we have a very robust calendar of things that we're going to be doing throughout the year. If there's a big event in town, assume that we are doing something adjacent to that event, whether it's at our private properties or something else. So just know that. We're going to get better and better. We've had a bunch of groups finally reach out and say, hey, major banks say, hey, Kurt, we see what you and the crew are doing. We understand that you're privately paying for all of this stuff out of your own pocket. We want to get more involved. So great things are happening behind the scenes. So here's the give. Since this is a fundraising room and now you are all raisers, right? Raise your hand if you're a raiser. You raise money. That's what you do. You raise capital. You allocate it. You channel it. You conduit it. That's you. You're a raiser. All right. So we have a crew. Eric's not here today. I'm not sure where he's at, but we have a crew every single week on Tuesdays and on Thursdays. We teach this stuff. There is no catch. It's currently free. Okay? Great funders that know what they're doing. Great angel investors. Great marketers that understand the go-to market strategy of how you launch your company. On Tuesdays, we teach all the meaty stuff that you really need to understand to fundraise. It's a more important session. But what's funny is founders think, oh, pitching brings me closer to the capital. Wrong. It makes you think you're more ready to do a pitch, but you're not actually prepared to actually do the pitch and all the things that go into the pitch. So twice a week, we teach these fundraising fluency things. Have they been good? Excellent. Okay. Jed, you in here? What do you think?
It's amazing. Anybody else is charging thousands of dollars for this.
Right.
Kurt is willingly giving his time and effort.
And it's not just me.
Everybody on the team. It's unbelievable.
And we have founders from all over, but yes, Vegas is showing up big time. On Thursdays, we do pitch kung fu every single week. You come and practice in the dojo so that when you get hit in the face, you know what to do, right? Okay? So that's our give. And of course, we have tons of events. CES, we've got a Venture Studio Summit, probably the first in the country that's going to be happening right here in Las Vegas. I intend to build a world-class venture studio right here in Las Vegas, focused around content and a few other things. And I'll build my fintech thing on the side because I got to do it. And also, we have a bunch of family office events coming during the Super Bowl. Okay, an ask that I have, something that would help me. Number one, if you know any ridiculously talented, forward-thinking content creators, I want to talk to them. We're going to attract them here. We need to build a megaphone for what's going on here in Las Vegas. Not for the purpose of just talking about how cool we are, but for the purpose of this is the best host city in the world. So of course we're going to run things like the Pitch World Series right here in Las Vegas. Where else would you do that? I want to have the best content creators in the world here because I believe the two hardest things in business are acquisition of capital, and you better believe I'm going to bring trained capital killers to Vegas to innovate right here in Vegas when it comes to fundraising for capital. Fundraising and acquisition of capital is the single hardest thing you're ever going to do in a business. The second is acquisition of audience. Marketing people and capital people don't understand what each other does. I want to bring them together, right? So I want the smartest and the best minds in capital and also in the marketing space to come here and at least have conversations, be coming to events, all host the events. The big ask that I have is if you know anyone that is amazing at sponsorship, has a track record with Fortune 500 companies, lots and lots of brands, where they're consistently delivering money into events, I want to chat with them. They can teach me what they know about sponsorship. They can bring those relationships, and I can teach them how to fundraise in the tech world and in that space, which is the hardest place in the world to actually raise, is in the venture space. And my vision is to have 15 of these individuals, and maybe out of that 15, we'll find 3 or 4 that really want to run and really want to work together for all these events we're constantly doing, because we're just scratching the surface. Last time I launched a community prior to Venture House and everything, we were in 8 cities every single month. We did 400 events very quickly. So I think we can take what we're doing in Vegas, have it be the hub, but at the same time start to project all of this opportunity beyond there and have it be this thing. I'm working very closely with Dubai, all these different places to make sure that they understand what they can receive here if they come and hang out. Another thing I'll just mention, guys, we're not paying attention to the convention crowd at all. 23 million come here. The leadership comes here. The people that can write these checks, coming back to sponsored capital, they come here every single week. From an investment perspective, put your investment hat on real quick. The leaders and the heads of state of all these different companies, the largest brands and companies in the world, they're all coming here. We don't get any credit for the billions of dollars that are produced in deals over breaking bread at dinner. I used to do 3 dinners a night when I first moved to Vegas for the first 3 or 4 or 5 years. And somebody's like, you got to write a book called Conversations at Midnight or Third Dinner or something, and maybe I will. But my point is this city has a superpower. We don't need to be like Silicon Valley. We just need to be the best host city in the world, all right? So guys, we're also moving into fundraising season. If you are not prepared to fundraise, January is the best time to May. You need to get prepared now. This is the reason we're doing these online sessions. There's absolutely no reason you shouldn't be there, and you shouldn't be bringing all of your founder friends. It doesn't matter if there's 15 people in there or if there's 70 people in there. You guys need to be there. Last time we built this, earlier in the year, we had 200 to 350 founders every single week. The reason we decided to start over is we weren't teaching all the meaty stuff. And I said, we have a responsibility to teach founders what they don't know about fundraising until I can just show them, not tell them. Show them through technology. Let the technology do the heavy lifting of pairing and matching, and then the founder has to actually do the pitches and conduit all those different capital types, since there's 60 of them. All right, guys, welcome to Who's Got My Money? Let's go raise some capital. Come on down, let's get a group picture.